Okay, that's me. Nice to be here. Thank you. Thanks. So I'm going to start with a confession. I've been to the Construct conference now since its beginning. And what is true, if you were here last year, was anybody here last year? Okay, do you remember Santa Ono, the former president of the University of Cincinnati? He was the keynote speaker, and he introduced himself with a video like this, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it, and I shamelessly stole the idea. In fact, I used the exact same production company that he did. It's just a nice way to make a great entree and intro. So, Carolyn, thanks for having us. And by the way, thank you to Interbrand for all you do to collaborate with us at Lindner and College of DAP. I know we've got a lot of students here. I conned all my students into sitting in the front row so it looked like a full house. I'm kidding. So I've got good news for you today. And the good news is simply this, that innovation can be thought of as a skill, not a gift. You can learn innovation and creativity. It is, without question, probably the most important factor of growth. Innovation is what drives growth in an organic way, and I'm going to teach you how to do it. I'm going to teach you how to use your brain in a new way to create ideas that you would not have done otherwise. And you should see that as good news because, folks, you certainly don't want to be stuck in this situation for the rest of your career, do you? You get back to that goddamn cubicle and start thinking outside the box. Raise your hand if you've heard this phrase before. Yeah, you've all heard it, so I know you have. Let me share with you where this comes from because it may surprise you. This phrase, thinking outside the box, it's become the universal catchphrase for all creativity. It emanated from this puzzle, this famous puzzle. It's called the 9-dot puzzle. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's a puzzle because you have to take your pencil and with just 4 straight lines, connect all 9 dots without lifting your pencil. Now, it's tricky unless you know the secret. Now, who knows the secret? Raise your hand. What's the secret? What's the secret, John? You got to go outside the box. So you take your first line like this, but then your second line, instead of stopping here, which is what most people would do, you extend, and it gives you an angle then to be able to come down again, and then you complete the puzzle by doing this. This puzzle was used in the 1970s by a researcher by the name of P.J. Guilford. And when Guilford administered this puzzle to people, he found that on average, only about 20% of people could solve it. And he's the one that coined the term, think outside the box. If we could just get our people to think outside the box, they'll be more successful. Well, there's only one problem. 2 other researchers, immediately after Guilford, did the same study using the same puzzle, but they added a second group to the study. The first group got the same instructions as Guilford gave his people. The second group got the same instructions as the first group, plus the added instructions that to solve the puzzle, you had to draw your lines outside the box created by the 9 dots. In other words, they got the answer. In the first group, just like Guilford's results, 20% could solve the puzzle. But what do you think happened in the second group? What do you think would happen? Shout it out. What would you guess? 100%? 20%. No change whatsoever. Thinking outside the box is a complete and utter myth. And here's what I want you to think about. When you tell somebody to think outside the box, you send their mind out in a vast, unconstrained cognitive space, and that has a tendency to overwhelm the mind. It has a tendency to cause what we call idea anarchy or idea chaos. And what I want to show you is that better thinking, better ideation happens when you are tightly constrained using a set of cognitive tools that channel your ideation for you and help you produce an idea. That's what I'm going to teach you now. So let's see what this is all about. No doubt you've recognized these 4 familiar fellows. The Beatles, I would say the most successful band of all time, rock band certainly. They recorded more albums in the US than any other band in history. Paul McCartney has not 1 but 2 of the top 10 selling songs of all time. $2 billion selling songs. Now it's amazing to have 1, but to have 2 is truly unique. And so in one of his biographies, he revealed the following. As usual for these co-written things, John often had just the first verse, which was always enough. It was the direction, it was the signpost, and it was the inspiration for the whole song. I hate the word, but it was the template. Paul and John had a set of patterns and templates that they used to create all those marvelous songs before they went to the US. And by the way, Paul McCartney isn't the only creative artist to use templates and patterns. Other artists like Salvador Dali, composers use patterns. Authors like Agatha Christie, right? She wrote 63 murder mystery novels, all using the exact same template. Poets like Robert Frost, they all use patterns. Interestingly, they don't want you to know about it. And why do you think that is? Why do you think they don't want you to know their pattern? Because what? Then it looks easy. It kind of takes away from the creative act. When in fact, it was the pattern that boosted their creative output. And what we need to ask ourselves is, what about everyday folks like us? What if we use the pattern of Paul McCartney, for example? What if you, Sean, what if you wrote a song using Paul McCartney's pattern? Would you end up with a billion-dollar selling song? Probably not. Well, here's what I'm willing to bet. I'm willing to bet you would end up with a more creative song using his pattern than not using his pattern. Patterns can boost our creative output too, no matter where you're starting from in the creativity scale. Now, it's not just creative artists that have used patterns. Innovators, inventors, for thousands of years have used patterns in their inventions, usually without even realizing it. And in doing so, those patterns are now embedded into the products and services you see around you every day. Think of the patterns as the DNA of a product or service. What if you had the ability to extract that DNA and reapply it to any product, process, brand, you name it? It's based on the work by my co-author. This is Dr. Jacob Goldenberg. Jacob did a very interesting thing for his PhD research. He studied highly innovative products initially to find out what made them different from one another. What he found is just the opposite, that highly innovative products have more in common with one another, that they tend to follow patterns that can be reapplied to help you ideate, to channel your ideation, to regulate your thinking for you. According to Jacob's research, it's very surprisingly, most innovative products in this world can be explained by just 5 patterns. 5 patterns. Subtraction. Many innovative products have had a core or essential element removed, at first in a way that seemed to ruin it or seemed absurd. Task unification. Many innovative products have taken a component of the product, assigned it an additional task, something it wasn't intended to do, something that at first seemed pretty strange or weird. Multiplication. Many innovative products have taken a component, made a copy of the component, but changed it in some counterintuitive, again, seemingly absurd way to create an innovation. Division. Many innovative products have taken the product or component of it, divided it physically or functionally, and then rearranged it, once again in a way that didn't seem to make any sense. Finally is attribute dependency. Many innovative products, in fact, the majority of innovative products, have taken 2 attributes, one of the product, one of its environment, and created a dependency between them. As one thing changes, another thing changes. Think, for example, of transition sunglasses. Do you know this product, transition sunglasses? As the light outside gets brighter, the lens gets darker. A classic example of attribute dependency. What I'm going to do with you today is teach you 2 of these tools and talk about how you use the patterns. All right, I'll talk about some resources afterwards, just like Lori did, to talk you through some additional reading and things you can look up if you have continued interest in this. Now, some of my students here have been through training. I know Bea has. Sean, you have, but you guys haven't yet. Who else has been through? Ryan, you have. Okay, of course, Kelsey has. Let's get started. Let's learn these patterns. I want you to take a look at these 4 items. And I want you to tell me what they have in common with one another. We have an exercise bicycle. We have a package of powdered soup. We have a contact lens. And this is a child's high chair. This is the kind of high chair that slips over the edge of the kitchen table, okay? Now, if you know the answer, I don't want you to shout it out, but I'd like the rest of you to take a look at those 4 items and just simply tell me, what do they have in common? What do they have in common? Take a close look. Yes, sir?
They're meant to be used by people.
They're meant to be used by people. This is true. Not what I'm looking for. They exist in the home. Again, true. Not the pattern I'm looking for. Look at their underlying structure. They're a variation of something they were before. But how? How do they come to this form from what they used to be? More compact. You're getting very close. Very, very close. I'll help you. In each case, something has been subtracted. So, the exercise bicycle, it's missing the rear wheel. What about the packaged soup? Water, very good. Contact lens, frame, and of course the legs of the exercise bicycle. This is the subtraction technique. Subtraction is defined as removing a core element, something thought to be essential, rather than the addition of new systems and functions. Here are the steps of subtraction. To use subtraction, you start by listing a product or service's internal components, the things directly attached. You randomly pick one of those components, preferably an essential one, and you imagine pulling it out to where you don't have it available to you. You have all the other components, just not the one that's been taken away. That becomes your virtual product, your virtual product. That virtual product basically is something that could seem absurd at first. We'll show you an example in a minute. And then you ask yourself these questions. The first question you ask yourself simply, what would be the benefit if we took that component out? Not that we're going to, but if you did, what additional benefits might manifest themselves? If you don't find any benefits, you move on, you forget it, and go to the next component. If you find some benefits, then you ask yourself, can we do it? Would it be necessary to replace the component, but not with the original component, with something in the immediate vicinity, a structure we call the closed world? And then you modify the new products to improve it. Now, this direction of thinking is very different than what you're used to traditionally in ideation. Typically, when you ideate, you start with a well-developed problem, and then you move to a solution to that problem. From the problem to the solution. What if I told you you could do this? That in fact you could start with a solution and work backwards to the problem that it solved. Does it seem weird? Guess what? Humans are actually better at that direction than the other direction. I want you to imagine I'm holding a baby's milk bottle. This milk bottle changes color when the temperature of the milk changes. Quickly, why would that be beneficial? Shout it out. Quickly. So you don't burn the baby with milk that's too hot. Great. Anybody, any audience in the world immediately gets that. But if I had said to you instead, hey folks, we need to come up with a way on how not to burn a baby with milk that's too hot. How long would it take you to come up with a color-changing milk bottle? Long time. Very long time. Maybe never. And so what you have to believe these patterns do, these patterns create these seemingly strange configurations, color-changing milk bottle. And then you take your brain with that configuration and connect it back to a benefit, something you were already able to do very nicely. Now, what I'm not saying is you should give up on problem-to-solution innovation. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is that to be a great innovator, you need to be a two-way innovator, from problems to solutions, and now from solutions to problems. Okay? I know we're leaving time at the end for questions, but don't hesitate to ask a question now if you have one. What I want to do is I want to show you the subtraction technique. It's actually my very first experience using this method when I worked for Johnson & Johnson in the medical device field here in Cincinnati. At that point in our existence, we had tried just about every innovation method on the planet. We had spent a lot of money, obscene amounts of money, I'm sorry to say. We were in the hunt for something that would really help us produce quality medical devices. And by chance, I happened to read about Dr. Goldenberg's research. So we decided to experiment with it. Our division made medical devices, devices for minimally invasive surgery, gallbladder surgery, cancer surgeries, things like that. We decided to get into an adjacent market. We wanted to get into the anesthesia business. We felt like it was a good fit to our medical device business. And so we had put together a team of engineers and marketers that worked on this device for about 2 years to create this new machine. And it's a very interesting machine. This is a CAD/CAM rendering. It does the anesthesia without the anesthesiologist. Kind of creepy, yeah. To experiment with this technique, this method of Goldenberg's, I talked my friend who was the team leader of this project, a guy named Mike, to pull together a team for a day, and we would apply the method just to see what we would get. And we did. We pulled the team together, and we applied subtraction, but I have to tell you what the context was. Imagine you'd been working in this field for 2 years. You've been working on this device for 2 years, and you're brought into a room at the Embassy Suites, and you're told, okay, now we're going to innovate. Yeah, what do you think the body language was, right? Let me see. There it is. Yeah, that's the body language. Oh, they were not happy. They were not happy. And how could you blame them, right? How could you blame them? But let's imagine applying the subtraction technique. To use subtraction, we make a list of the components of this device. So what do you see here? You see a screen. This is the anesthetic. You see a keyboard. You see this device called the carousel. Looks like there's a printer down here, a hinge, a display. And there's something very important here. This not only has to have a power supply, but by law, any device that's used in an operating room environment has to have a backup battery as well. That seems to make sense. This is a device that would be used by, say, a gastroenterologist to examine your colon. You better have a backup battery if the power goes out and you're being scoped. So what we do in practice is we write these components on a flip chart. We number them, and then we break the group into pairs. You're going to do this in a minute with a different technique. We break you into pairs, and we assign you one component at a time. You two have the screen, you two have the backup battery, you two have the hinge, you two have the drug, you understand? And then the pair has a short amount of time, maybe 3 minutes, to imagine mentally removing that component and identifying benefits. In the interest of time, I want to focus on 2 components in particular, the screen and the backup battery. So the facilitator goes to these 2 participants and says, all right, you two have the backup battery. What do you think was the thought balloon over their head when they were assigned that component? What do you think they were thinking? Say it. Crap. Actually, it was a little more colorful than that. That was pretty good. No, they were experiencing a cognitive condition we all have called fixedness. Fixedness is a bias that makes it very difficult for us to imagine other configurations than what we know. They looked at the facilitator and says, you can't do that. It's against the law. Strong, strong fixedness. In fact, they were really upset. They said, this is a waste of time. Why are we wasting a day from the development center? Some of them started to get up and leave. They were that offended by this. But let's be true to the process here. I want you now to think about, let's imagine we remove the backup battery. We have all the other components, just not the backup battery. I'll simply ask you, what do you think some of the benefits are? Lighter. Smaller. In fact, The engineer says, Drew, the backup battery takes up most of the footprint here. He said, if you could really take out the backup battery, you wouldn't believe how incredibly simple this project becomes. Lighter, cheaper, simpler. Pretty good. But now we have to ask the second question. Can we do it? What's the challenge here? Yeah, you'll go to jail. That's pretty important challenge. Now, we can think about replacements, but when we think about replacements, we have to look into the environment where the product's being used, that immediate vicinity we call the closed world. And I want all of you to look in here and see, is there something in there that could replace the backup battery of that anesthesia machine? Another backup battery? Are you an engineer? Do you have a medical background? Okay, no and no. And this is exactly what one of the engineers said. He says, well, Drew, you know, I guess we could take a cable out of our device and hook it up to the backup battery of the defibrillator. There's plenty of power. It's easy. I couldn't believe it. Absolutely couldn't believe it. And I looked at him and I said, really? Do you think that'll work? And here's what he does. I swear to God, he goes like this. And he starts making notes. And I said, what are you doing? He says, I'm designing this. This is so easy. We could have this prototype by the end of the day. By 3 o'clock, I know all the hookups and the volts and ohms and watts. Simple. They started to get up. They wanted to walk out and go back and build it. One application of subtraction. The facilitator went to 2 other participants and said, okay, you have the screen. What do you think was the thought balloon over their head? What do you think was going through their minds when they were assigned the screen? What do you think? Same thing. Can't be done. You got to see the data. What's that condition called? Fixedness. Very strong fixedness. All right, but once again, let's be true to the process. We imagine removing the screen. We, in our mind, visualize this screenless anesthesia machine, kind of like color-changing milk bottle, color, like transition sunglasses, lens darkening lenses. And I ask you, all right, not that we're going to, but if we did remove the screen, what would be some of the benefits? What's that? Same, lighter, cheaper, it's a lot more reliable, no software development. Okay, so there are a number of benefits, but now let's think about the challenges. What are the challenges to this if you take the screen out? How do you get the data? All right? So let's go back into our closed world, and I ask all of you, do you see anything that could replace the screen of an anesthesia machine? What? Sound could be sound system, if it's in there. Who said that? You? Are you an engineer? Are you oh, never mind. Forget it. Yeah, the engineer goes, Drew, we could. He said, this is the primary monitor. This is exactly where the doctor's looking anyway to examine your colon. He said, that way the doctor has only one place to look. I said, really? And he goes like this. And he starts making notes. I said, what are you doing now? And he says, oh, we could have this done by noon. It's Bluetooth, easy. We'll put the data around the outside of the screen. Whoops, sorry. We'll put the data around the outside of the screen here. That way it's like a heads-up display. Very convenient. Once again, they want to get up and start prototyping it. In one round of subtraction, what was so interesting about this is we came up with lots of great ideas. The team went to lunch. We came back from lunch. Around 2 or 3 o'clock, I forget now, my friend Mike, the team leader, came to me and says, Drew, we need to stop the workshop. And I said, why? It seems to be going really well. And he said, oh yeah, it's going really well. He said, the team realized there's just so many opportunities. They've decided to start the entire project over again, setting it back another 2 years. But it sounds horrible, but they actually brought back the facilitators and did a full 4-day facilitation to create a completely new embodiment than what you saw up here. And that's when I knew, my colleagues and I knew that we had something special. We had something that could make innovation systematic. We didn't have to rely on our own brain. The tool does the work for you if you use it the right way. And we've had great success with it. This is in 2002, and now the method is used throughout J&J. Procter & Gamble is one of the first users and continues to use it. GE. It's finally starting to spread, I think, in large part thanks to the book that Jacob and I co-authored. I'll talk more a little bit about that later. Any questions before I move on? Any questions? No?
Have you tried to speak to Samsung about removing the battery?
Have I talked to Samsung about removing the battery phone? Sir, I have a rule in my keynotes. I tell the jokes here, okay? No, I'm kidding. That's pretty sad for Samsung. Yeah, that's a bummer. Okay, so if not, we'll have time at the end, and I'll be here for a while. I'm going to go ahead and teach you a second tool. We have time. We have a hard stop in 15 minutes, right? 2:30. Just make sure. I want to keep you, 2:20? Okay, let's hurry up then. Okay. Ready? This is not my house in Mason, Ohio, I'm sorry to say. Not my house. This is one of the homes owned by the famous inventor Thomas Edison. He had several of these homes. He was very successful. But to get into this home, you had to go through this gate. But there was something odd about the gate. To get into the gate, you had to push it really hard. And then to close it, you had to turn and push it really hard. And it just seemed odd for a guy like Edison to have this broken gate. And it wasn't until after he died they realized that he had attached a pump to the gate so that every time it opened and closed, it was pumping fresh water into the plumbing system of his house. Now, honestly, we don't know if the story's true, but it makes a great story to introduce this next technique called task unification. Task unification is defined as this. Task unification takes a component, an existing component, and assigns it an additional job, something it wasn't designed to do. It's a very, very functional, very useful tool. We start by listing internal and now external components. We pick one of those components and assign it an additional job. It can be the function of another component. It could be something else you want done in the environment. We ask ourselves, okay, virtual product, what would be the benefit? What would be the potential challenges, and how can we overcome them? Now, what I like about task unification, it's great for product development. I'll show you some examples in a minute. But we're going to use it on an issue. I like to use it on sometimes business drivers. Imagine you're in the grocery business like Kroger. One of the things they're always trying to do is keep people in the store longer, right? Keep people in the store longer, because all the research shows they buy more. In fact, what do grocery stores do today to keep you in the store longer? They do what? Food sampling. Food sampling. They put all the milk and cheese in the back and stuff like that. Let's try a round of task unification to see how we would apply it to address something like this. We start by listing the components. And as you see here, I've listed these out. And what I want you to do is this. I want you to well, let's experiment first. Pick a number between 1 and 15. Don't look at the list. Pick a number. 13? Bathrooms. Great. Thanks a lot. Okay. Perfect. Now, here's what we do. We create this phrase. It sounds like this. The bathrooms have the additional job of keeping people in the store longer. That sounds crazy. Now I want you to imagine how it would work. I want you to force your mind to say, okay, what could the bathrooms do that would make people want to stay longer? How about if a consumer goods company like P&G put sample products in there, or sample cosmetics, or sample cleaning products, right? Sample toiletries and things like that. Could make it a demo area, make it an informational area. All of a sudden, you recruit that component to do more work for you. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to turn to your neighbor, somebody sitting, Ryan, why don't you go back with this young lady back here? You two split up into pairs. What I want you to do is don't look at this list. In fact, I'm going to take it off the screen for now. I want you to randomly pick a number. Randomly pick a number. We all know what 13 is now. But now pick a number, and then I'm going to show you the number, and I want you to create the phrase. The component has the additional job of keeping people in the store longer. You pick one. Pick one number. Everybody have a number? Get together? Do you have a partner? No? These guys will adopt you. Okay, here it is. Ryan, why don't you here with Molly? Okay, look at your component. What component did you pick? Now create the phrase. You have 1 minute to come up with an idea. 1 minute of how that component could keep people in the store longer. Go. Okay, and time. Time. How did that go? It's weird, huh? Strange. And what it's doing is it's forcing you to confront what's a condition of particular type of fixedness called functional fixedness. Functional fixedness makes it hard for us to imagine bathrooms keeping people in the store longer. And to use this method, you have to understand you all have fixedness, and it is the barrier to your creativity. And you need a cognitive tool like this to guide your ideation and channel you so you create these configurations you never would have done on your own. You never would have done on your own. Any ideas anyone want to share? I know I didn't give you a lot of time. Yes, sir. Number 5, parking.
So, if you think about it, maybe having somebody wash your car.
Okay, so car services, change oil.
I love my car washed, so I like it clean.
Okay.
So I'm gonna, if I know somebody's gonna take it off site or if it's going,
Yeah, it'd spend a little more time.
I'm gonna spend a little
Sure, sure, good. Oil change, windshield wipers, yeah, all the above. Yep, there's a lot can be done. Good. Good, you're going to spend more time, exactly right. Maybe you don't do it for every customer, maybe it's just your high premium value customers. Sure. Okay, I'm going to play a video. We good on sound? Okay, I'm going to move us along here because we've got to end. This is an actual commercial from a real grocery store based in Denmark, and I think you'll know why I'm showing it to you.
5 ways to make the customer stay longer in a Factor shop. Number 1, get in the way. Number 2, tell a joke to the customer. Number 3, do the milk thing. Number 4, glue the shopping bags together. Number 5, make the customer's child disappear.
Boris? Boris?
It only takes 5 minutes to shop in Factor, but we really wish you will stay a little longer.
Poor Bovis. I'm going to end with just a few examples of products that are invented with task unification, like this one. If you look carefully at the label, you'll see the familiar barcode for scanning. But then when you get home and put this apple under fruit, the label dissolves and turns into a soap appropriate for washing fruit. Oh, yeah, task unification produces those, gee, why didn't I think of that? If you like that, you'll like this. This is actually used in Australia. The exhaust has been recruited to perform an additional job. It's used on off-road tire changing scenarios. We use task unification for marketing communications a lot. This one I just love. This is another example at retail, right? The security grate looks like the front of a Fender amp. This one is very clever. It's a feature on Nissan, many Nissan car models. It's called the Easy Fill Tire Alert. When you're filling up your tire and you reach the correct pressure, the horn goes beep, beep. Isn't that cool? Where's that been all my life? This is a subway station in Korea. The walls of the subway station have been made to look like a grocery store. The commuter on the way home scans the items they want to buy. It's texted to their grocer, paid for, and they pick it up on the way home. If you want to learn more, this is our book, Inside the Box. I'm happy to say it's in 17 languages. It just got published in Indonesia, of all places. It's doing quite well. I appreciate your time and attention. I'm going to leave you with one last piece of advice. Never, ever think outside the box. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you. Do we have time for questions? Any questions? Looks like we might have a few minutes.
Yeah, we can go ahead. We'll just have 12:45 is when our next
Okay,
speaker is back in here.
2:45.
2:45.
2:45. Okay.
Go back to time.
Any questions? We're good?
Could you say a little bit about, you've got an online tool too, don't you?
Yeah, there were a number of tools to learn this method. One is an app. There's actually a web app. If you go to drewboyd.com, you can access it there. There's also, if you're familiar, LinkedIn has a company called lynda.com. Lynda.com, Lynda. It's a training company that LinkedIn owns, and I'm an author. And so this course is there. Or you can get into the master's program at University of Cincinnati. Thanks, Sean. Yeah, any other questions? Yes?
I have not so much a question, but just an observation.
Yeah.
I think it's really brilliant because so many times I think I'm in design, so I'm in the creative world, and I
Yeah.
think a lot of times when you offer up a design brief or you talk to someone and you're briefing someone about design and you have a lot of guidelines, they get very frustrated. Oh, I can't be creative in that. And for me, I think true creativity happens inside the guidelines, like inside the specs.
Yeah, that's the box.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think, not that I have a question as much, I just think that the observation is brilliant.
Yeah.
I think that being able to teach people that you can be creative inside the box is such a wonderful skill to be able to have.
Good. Yeah, well, two comments I would make. First of all, it's called the principle of constraints. It's well understood. Creativity can't happen without constraints. But many people think you have to take the constraints off, that they're a barrier, when in fact it's just the opposite. The constraints form the box. It doesn't make sense to generate ideas that violate the constraints. They make your mind work harder and smarter. When I write, I put myself under time limits. I try to write 2,000 words before noon, and I just force I don't care how good or bad it is, just those constraints really make me work. And anyway, and to your comment about teaching this, Jacob and I set a goal, like Linda talked about life goals, and our goal is to make this method the dominant form of ideation. I've taught this to kids. I've taught this to kids with Down syndrome. And so there's a long way to go. The word is finally spreading, and people are yearning for something that is systematic. But there are a lot of stigmas or myths about creativity and the inability to learn it, that it's for special people. The fusion of this method with design is over the top. I just love it. I work a lot with DAP. I get Masters of Design students in my courses, and I think it's a brilliant combination. They're not in competition at all. All right, folks, thanks very much. Enjoy the rest of the conference.